Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium and I'm back to do another one of these little slideshow presentation video things. Maybe I'll make a habit of it because I had so much fun doing the last one. But this time I'm here to talk about Medicham and maybe make an argument for why it's the best fighting type in ADV, although I'm not going to spend too long comparing to all the fighting types. If you wanted to see a video like that, maybe I would do one, but there's another one by BKC, which I may link in the description if I remember to do it. So here's the ADV viability rankings. If you've seen my last video about Flygon, you've already seen this graphic before, but you see that Medicham, according to McMegan, is bottom of C rank, which is higher than Cloyster, Gyarados, and Breloom, who are all OU ranked right now. So Medicham, despite being UUBL, maybe it has an argument that it should be OU. I'm not the one who really decides that, so I don't know, but maybe we'll, again, see if you guys agree that Medicham should be OU. So the first thing to note about Medicham, and this is kind of a role that many fighting types can fulfill, is countering the common leads in ADV. Tyranitar, despite, or probably due to its ability, is a very, very common lead in this metagame. A lot of teams want to get the sand up as early as possible, and a Pokemon like Medicham, who has really strong stab to hit on its quad weakness, can super duper punish teams that lead with T-Tar. This team that I have here is an example of a team that tries to build early momentum against lead T-Tars. It's called Zet's Hyper Offense. Shoutouts to Zets. This Medicham can also present problems to Pokemon like Zapdos and Skarmory, depending on what sets the Zapdos and Skarmory are running. Zapdos might be slower than Medicham and eat a fat Rock Slide to its face. And Skarmory might not be running moves like Drill Peck or anything that could really threaten Medicham directly, and is going to get Focus Punch to its mouth. It's not great against things like lead Metagross, Suicune, or Salamence, who are the three most common leads. Metagross does a lot of damage and it's threatening to kill you if it's Choice Band, and you don't quite one-shot it back. Not even really close. Suicune is in a similar situation. It's not as strong as Metagross, where it's threatening on Oko, but it's just defensively going to wall Medicham, and Salamence is kind of in a similar boat, at least when they're matching up against each other in the lead. But now it's time for a pop quiz. I've got 4 Pokemon here: Medicham, Slacking, Groudon, and Deoxys Attack. I know that's a portrait for Deoxys normal, but just pretend it's Attack. Which of these Pokemon has the highest base attack? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. Alright, if you guessed that Deoxys Attack was the one with the highest base attack, then congratulations, you read above a 3rd grade level. But I wonder if you guys knew that Slacking has more attack than Groudon. It's kind of shocking. Medicham, on the other hand, has a measly base 60 attack stat. That's like pitiful. There are some stage 1 Pokemon that have higher attack stats than that. Take like Trapinch, for example, has base 100. This is what those base stats translate to in terms of like raw actual attack stats. Medicham is barely even cracking 200 without Adamant, and with Adamant it's closer to 200 than it is to 300. It's paltry compared to the other attack stats that we see here in the 400s and 500s. And then Medicham is quite sad about that. But wait, what if we factor in the ability? So Medicham's ability, which is Pure Power, doubles its attack stat. But so what? 120 base attack is not even close to the likes of Groudon and Slacking, much less Deoxys attack. But that's not how Pure Power works. Instead, Pure Power doubles the actual attack stat of Medicham, so that 219 will become 438. That's the same amount as an Adamant Groudon. And we don't even need the Adamant nature. But what if we were Adamant? 480. We just eclipsed Slacking, the Pokemon with the highest attack stat in OU. Adamant Medicham, frankly, runs away with this comparison. Well, except when you compare it to a Deoxys attack. That's still the GOAT. But in any case, we've looked at the stats, but how does that translate to real damage that you'll be doing in-game? So I've got 3 Pokemon here that are notoriously difficult to break. Blissey, Snorlax, and Skarmory. I have the particular sets that I'm looking at here. These are all pretty common sets. Curselax, I guess, is arguably not as common as the Utility Lax, but I picked Curselax because it's got better bulk. In any case, we're just going to illustrate this point here. So, a 252 attack, so not Adamant, Brick Break from Medicham is dealing a pretty sizable chunk to the normal types. That's not surprising since it's a super effective move. But Skarmory kind of eats it up. If we're Adamant, though, in fact, we're getting a one-shot kill on the most common Blissey set. Additionally, we are getting pretty close to KOing the Snorlax. With some spikes down and sand up, Snorlax may not get to do much. Skarmory, on the other hand, still eats it up pretty well, and it can use things like Protect to get even more health back. But let's take a look at Focus Punch for a second. Focus Punch against Skarmory is doing upwards of 67 to 86% depending on whether you're Jolly or Adamant. That's enough that a Focus Punch into a Brick Break can kill Skarmory. Of course, Snorlax is also going to die to Focus Punch. It does about double the damage of Brick Break, given that it is about, well, actually exactly double the base power. Also, Tyranitar is just frankly pitiful into Medicham. Look at those rolls. And that's from a Jolly Medicham against a max defense Tyranitar. Yeah, I would be laughing too. But you think you might have a Medicham switch in. You know, yeah, Medicham can spam fighting type moves all at once, but there are psychic and flying and ghost types around that resist. Well, what about Medicham's coverage moves? Look at that. Shadow Ball against the bulkiest Gengar set, or at least the most common bulky Gengar set, is about a 50% chance to kill. I think it's actually a little bit favored for the Medicham. And that's, again, assuming that Medicham is not Adamant, and assuming that Gengar is running one of its bulkiest sets. -1 Medicham Rock Slide is threatening a 2-hit KO on Salamence. That's pretty disgusting. And then Shadow Ball onto Celebi. Well, frankly, Celebi does take this better, but this is also, again, the bulkiest common Celebi set. And, I mean, you could run HP Bug. Granted, I would not recommend running HP Bug on Medicham. It's got a lot of moves that it would rather run, and Shadow Ball is getting you kind of close to what you want against Celebi. So, I think I would not recommend HP Bug. One thing I want to note here is that Medicham is the only Gen 3 fighting type that has access to Shadow Ball. So it doesn't have to rely on a weaker hidden power to be able to hit Gengar, for example. That's really cool. A lot of the would-be OU fighting types would love to have a ghost type move in order to hit Gengar, but alas, some of them don't even get Rock Slide, so coverage is at a premium. The hardest wall to break for Medicham, at least in my opinion, is Bold Suicune. We're doing basically no damage. I mean, Focus Punch looks pretty nice, but obviously Focus Punch has the drawback of if you get attacked on the turn that you use it, you just don't get to do anything. And while Suicune may give you some turns where it's going to Calm Mind and you might be able to sneak a Focus Punch in, generally speaking, the Suicune's just going to surf you out. It has a small chance to get a 2-hit KO on you, even with no investment. And with a Calm Mind, I mean, that just becomes a guaranteed 2-hit KO. So that's not nice. The matchup spread for Medicham, I'll admit, I was very, very biased towards Medicham here. I've kind of tiered them into groups of who can switch into Medicham and then threaten it, and who can't. Skarmory and Suicune, by my estimation, are really the only two Pokemon that can just come in on whatever Medicham's most devastating move on them is and still win the Medicham matchup. Now, they can't do it indefinitely. That Focus Punch is going to add up, but they can do it once, at least. So, that's notable. Another thing, Heracross and Salamence are really the only two Pokemon that can switch into whatever Medicham's best move to click into them. I think in both cases it's Rock Slide. Actually, I guess maybe in the case of Heracross, it's actually Shadow Ball. But in any case, both of them will live it, and both of them are threatening a KO back on Medicham. Heracross with its Adamant Mega Horn, and Salamence with HP Flying if it has it. Now, if Salamence doesn't have HP Flying, it actually does not get an OHKO on Medicham. So that's something important to note. All the Pokemon in the set dependent or slash, OHKOs, if not dead on Switch In, are Pokemon that commonly do beat Medicham, but if they switch into a Focus Punch or a Rock Slide, or in the case of Celebi, a Shadow Ball, then they're actually not looking that good at beating Medicham. Hell, Charizard and Moltres, if they switch into a Rock Slide, they're just dead. So, yeah, it's kind of brutal. A lot of Pokemon gets absolutely smoked on the Switch In, and can't even threaten the OHKO on Medicham. Things like Starmie, and you would think Starmie with a max special attack Hydro Pump would get there. It does not unless you're Modest, I think. And Modest Starmie is not even super common. In fact, actually, that might be a lie. Modest might not even get you. Let's check that out before I spread misinformation online. Starmie, offensive. Oh yeah. If it's Modest, it has about a 20% chance to knock you out. I mean, technically 18.8, but, we round here. So, yeah, in fact, it's not even favored to get the OHKO on you, which is incredible. Some of these Pokemon could explode, but exploding into a Medicham feels really bad, because Medicham is somewhat frail, and you would rather just attack it once or twice and save your boom. But yes, I was kind of generous to Medicham here on Jirachi, because Jirachi is very, very favored in the Medicham matchup. But if it switches into a Focus Punch, regardless of what Jirachi said it is, it's scared to take another one. So it limits Jirachi's options just a little bit. There are some Pokemon here that are frail, like Jinx, who just straight up die to Brick Break. And then there are the Pokemon at the top who absolutely get bullied by Medicham. They're getting one shot by Brick Break sometimes. I guess Snorlax doesn't get one shot by Brick Break, but it absolutely cannot switch into Medicham. In any case, let's go on to some spreads, some Medicham sets that you'll commonly see. So I did a little bit of editing, if I'm being honest, on the all-out attacker set. I've seen some people run Lumberry on this type of Medicham, and I think that there's definitely a case for it. I've also seen people run Adamant instead of Jolly. Again, there's a case for that as well. Particularly, I would see like a Lumberry Medicham in the lead slot, trying to maybe handle Zapdos a little more effectively, and then Adamant Rock Slide is doing LeBron numbers, Jordan numbers even on Zapdos, so that's quite good. As you can see, Brick Break and Focus Punch are high value moves. They're moves that are going to be commonly seen on a lot of Medicham sets. I do think that you have the option, maybe, if you want to run Substitute, Rock Slide, and Shadow Ball, then you can choose to not have Brick Break or Focus Punch. I would generally lean towards not having Brick Break, although not having Brick Break does make you worse into things like Blissey, who can stay in on you and click something like a Ice Beam or a Seismic Toss to get a little bit of chip. So keep that in mind. Additionally, we have a Choice Band Medicham set. It is so tempting to run Choice Band Adamant Medicham and have a 700 attack Pokemon on your side. But generally, I would advise that you go Jolly, because there are just so many things that you can outspeed with Jolly that you can't with Adamant, that it, to me, is worth it if you're going to already invest your item slot into the Choice Band. I mean, if you recall, 252 attack Medicham has the same attack stat as an Adamant Groudon. So I think you're not hurting that badly to not have Adamant. In any case, you see Brick Break, Shadow Ball, Rock Slide. You could run Focus Punch on Choice Band, but that makes you extremely reliant on prediction, which, I mean, Medicham kind of already is, but I'll be honest. But you could run Fake Out. Fake Out is a rare priority move in this generation. Not very many Pokemon can run a priority move or even choose to run a priority move. But Choice Banded Medicham can chunk a lot of Pokemon with a Fake Out. It's especially good against Pokemon that are Sand weak, that are not able to heal themselves back up. So things like your Suicune, who's forced to rest if it's going to heal at all. Zapdos, frail, fast Pokemon like Jolteon, who are trying to get a sneaky switch out on you with Baton Pass. Yeah, a lot of Pokemon actually do not want to take that Fake Out. Plus, there are a lot of times where a Pokemon will be left at pretty low health, and Fake Out would finish them off. So being able to threaten that is pretty good. High Jump Kick. I would generally not advise running High Jump Kick. I don't think I've ever seen it. Maybe I've seen it once. But I would never use it because I think it's too easily dealt with. Protect is not a super uncommon move in ADV, and anybody clicking Protect into your HJK is going to make you look like a clown. Also, Gengar is still decently common. It's not on every team, but it's on a good number of teams, and Gengar switching in, trying to catch your Brick Break, catching a High Jump Kick is just licking its lips. Like, does it have lips? Let's not think about that too much. So we have some niche Medicham sets. These have Smogon analyses, and I think that there is a potential room to put that on your team, but I would generally stick towards the first two, unless you really, really know what you're doing with these ones. Bulk up. Bulk up is a really nice move, and you would think that Medicham boosting its attack stat even further would be like astronomical wall breaking value. And that's true. But it costs you a coverage move or focus punch. As you see, we're suggesting Brick Break, Shadow Ball, and Rock Slide, or you could choose to pick Recover over one of Shadow Ball or Rock Slide. Recover is kind of interesting because it, can get you back to full health, and there are a lot of Pokemon that will just switch on Medicham because they don't want to, they're going to die, so they don't want to take the move. They're going to go to a defensive switch in like a Suicune or a Swampert. And Recover can get you back up to full. And Medicham, we'll discuss a little bit later, has a pretty decent defensive profile, at least for a Pokemon that's selling solely out to the offensive stats. There are a lot of moves that you wouldn't think that Medicham would live, but it does. And then the sort of antithesis to that is the reversal set, which is trying to get down to as low HP as possible. And with a Salac Berry and a 200 base power reversal at 1 HP, I mean, what can you do, really? Shadow Ball is going to pick up the Pokemon that are immune to your reversal, i.e. Gengar, and you'll just go to town. Now, the problem with Salac, of course, is if there's permanent sand, you can't get yourself down to 1 HP, because substituting down there, you'll just die to Sandstorm on the next turn. So that's not good. The reversal Salac requires some team support, particularly like Weather Clear, in order to be consistent, but I mean, like, this is already a kind of gimmicky matchup fish type of set in the first place, so I wouldn't really recommend it. I have some alternate benchmarks here for speed and defense. If you would like to explore some of these options, I have not personally tried most of these out. So, I mean, if you want to give some of them a try, I'm totally down to hear what you have to say about it. Of these speed stats, I think that there's a lot of value in outspeeding Heracross. Suicune does not very commonly go to 252 speed. Sometimes it does with like a lead offensive Suicune, like the Italian offense Suicune. I think runs pretty fast, but Heracross does commonly go to 252 speed, and being able to outspeed Heracross, or like Adamant Heracross, to get some damage on it is really nice, especially when you're gonna click Rock Slide. You potentially get a flinch, and then you could just get rid of the Heracross entirely. Not that I'm suggesting that you play for hacks, but sometimes if it goes your way, that's really good. Probably the slowest I would personally try with Medicham, and as you'll see, I'm very jolly biased over Adamant, is this 176 plus speed tier. That's getting you faster than all the base 70s that run max speed. So Breloom, Magneton, Skarmory, Cloyster, Metagross. Most of those Pokemon don't actually run max speed. Breloom, Magneton, and on rare occasions Skarmory will get that fast. And being faster than Breloom and Magneton that's really good. I would love to just get massive damage on the Breloom for it to spore me. And also, because Medicham is a psychic type, it's resisting all of Breloom's fighting type moves. And if you've seen the standard Breloom set, it's running basically only fighting type moves, so it's quite good there. I also included Adamant Gyarados, who's technically a little bit slower than these max speed 70s, but like I wouldn't suggest going like a point lower than the base 70s just to be faster than Gyarados when it literally only costs you 8 EVs to get faster than all of those. So you could do a little less. You could go to 252 raw speed stat, which is 220 EVs, to get faster than max speed Vaporeon. That probably matters more if you're going to run a lead Medicham, because Vaporeon is, I think, pretty commonly in the lead if it's even on a team at all. And then you could go to 244 by running 192 EVs. I hope that's not confusing the way I'm mixing up these numbers, to get faster than a max speed Tyranitar. If you're going to run slower than that, I would suggest probably just finding a new Pokemon, because one of the values of Medicham is that it is faster than Tyranitar and threatening an OHKO on it with not very high investment. You don't even need to boost. Not very many Pokemon can do that. Metagross is like pretty much the only other one, and Metagross doesn't even run enough speed to outspeed a max Tyranitar usually. So I have a few defensive benchmarks here. Probably the one that I would look at the most is Living a Banded Jolly Dugtrio Earthquake. It's actually pretty interesting that Dugtrio, if it max rolls its Earthquake, will kill the standard Medicham. But if you can find 12 more EVs to put into HP or defense, then you can make it so that you're guaranteed to live one from full. There's another one here with pretty low investment, which 64 HP with 20 Spadef. And that will get you to survive the standard special attacker Charizard Fire Blast, which is not running completely max special attack. I think it's like 240. I don't know if that's common anymore. Personally, with my Charizards, I tend to just run max special attack, but I sort of digress. We also managed to live an Adamant Choice Banded Double Edge from Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl is commonly not adamant, but sometimes it is, and sometimes it doesn't run HP flying, or sometimes it doesn't want to commit to locking into HP flying. So you can run just a little bit of HP and make yourself a little bit more consistent against Aerodactyl. It's kind of niche, but maybe that'll save you in a battle. Just checking for the sake of it. Moltres Flamethrower, if it's modest, you will also survive that with this 64-20 spread. The last one that I would even possibly consider, the problem with this is you're going to have to run less speed or less attack, and you want to run as much attack as possible to get as much out of your ability as possible. But if you run 104 HP or 72 defense, you can survive a Jolly Heracross Megahorn. I think the 104 HP will get you to what you need to survive the Charizard and the Aerodactyl as well. So that's why you might want to consider the 104 HP. But if you want to minimize the amount of EVs that you're investing, then 72 defense is the way to go. A novel set using this kind of idea is running the speed stat to outspeed the base 70, so that's the 176 Jolly, and then stitching that together with the surviving Charizard and Adamant Arrow defensive threshold. In order to do this, I did have to steal 4 EVs from attack, but it's not a significant enough change that you're not still threatening all the things that you would be threatening with a Jolly Medicham anyway. Full disclosure, when we get into the battles, I did not use this set. Oh, nice, Littleroot town. That's cool. I did not use this set for my battles. I just used the all-out attacker, maybe changed a move or two. But yeah, I haven't tested it, but I think this could work if you have a team where you need like a secondary Charizard answer for some reason. Then Medicham is here for you. It can do it. Granted, if Charizard decides that it's just going to sub down to its Blaze range, then there's not really much you can do about that. But maybe you're up against somebody who says, well, my Fire Blast could kill this Medicham, so I'm just going to click it. And there you go. Maybe you'll profit. I don't know. The team structure. So Medicham kind of can go in 2 roles. It can lead, which is going to punish Tyranitar leads, or it can be a revenge killer, cleaner, wall breaker type in the back. And I'm going to show you kind of 2 teams that use Medicham in 2 different ways. So this top team, I did not come up with these 6 myself. I think I found a Smogon forum post, and the team was called Medicham Party 4, and that's what it is in my builder. Yeah, I've got the same 6 as them. I have another version of this team where I've replaced Tyranitar with Claydol, and then I've experimented with the Charizard slot with different special attackers like Raikou and Jolteon and Zapdos. Well, I guess really just electric types. I still think Charizard is quite good. As for whether to run Claydol or Tyranitar, both have their purposes. Tyranitar is really good at keeping defensive mons low for Metagross and Medicham and Swampert to take on. But Claydol is really good at spinning spikes away so that Medicham can take advantage of its niche bulk options where, it can, being guaranteed to live Starmie, Hydro Pump, and having a roll to die to it is very different, But in any case, Medicham in the first team is trying to open up the game for Charizard and Regice to do some work. Regice is not like nearly as potent a sweeper as Charizard is, but it certainly can be dangerous with a stab Ice Beam off a base 100 special attack stat. But in any case, option 2, I've got Medicham as a surprise revenge killer. This team here, I've played around a lot with the Salamence, the Metagross, and the Tyranitar, and I think what I've kind of concluded is I like mixed Smenced and mixed Tyranitar on this team, and then just running like bulky attacker or agility Metagross. Medicham is taking the physical wall breaking power that Salamence, Metagross, and Tyranitar all could work towards. So I'm afforded the opportunity to go mixed on 2 of the 3 of them. And it's really nice too, because I think a lot of people will see a lead Mence and go, okay, that's mixed, and then see the Tyranitar later and say, well, you're not going to be mixed Mence and Tyranitar. They switch into Skarmory, and then Tyranitar Fire Blasts it, which is always really funny to me. But in any case, we will be going into the games right now. If I can get my everything set up here. There we go. All right, so first game. I believe this is a lead Medicham for me. We're up against a lead Gengar. Lead Gengar is not very common, but I'm just going to go for Shadow Ball. Reason being, lead Medicham could run Lumberry, so I don't think Gengar would go for Will-O-Wisp, and also it's just risking that you could just miss the Will-O-Wisp and die to Shadow Ball. Instead, the opponent goes for Thunderbolt. I'm not really sure why. If it was me personally and I had a lead Gengar against a Medicham, I would just switch. There's no reason to stay in and take the Shadow Ball, but there we go. We get the kill early on. Now, Starmie's threatening a KO on my Medicham, so I'm going to switch to Regice. I like Regice because it's a more offensive special wall than Blissey. So I can punish some things like Starmie a lot easier than maybe if I was using Blissey. That being said, I could see an argument for using Blissey over Regice on this team. So I go to Metagross, who's commonly pretty good against Blissey. I punch the Scarm, and then I decide to blow up so that it can't get its spikes off. Medicham is going to threaten the Scarm. We're going to see a switch to Swampert. I'm going to substitute. So one thing that Zetz and his hyper offense team has kind of shown, and it's proliferated through the ladder for like a solid 2 weeks after he posted that video, you were running into a Zetz hyper offense team if you were playing on ladder for more than like 3 games. So I am actually a substitute Medicham, so I don't have Rock Slide, but I got to sub up against the Swampert, which allows me to get a Focus Punch off on it, and that's a lot of damage. I can go for Brick Break here to threaten to kill. He actually protects, and I think I'm going to go for Brick Break again, and I don't quite get the roll, and it's in Torrent range, and it kills me with Hydro Pump, which is unfortunate, but I think that this is a very successful lead Medicham. It killed a Gengar and brought the Swampert down to basically dead. And also the Skarmory is basically dead as well. I get a Lucky Freeze on the Blissey, which allows me to go for Hydro Pump pretty low risk. I get a kill on the Swampert. If I went for Rock Slide, or sorry, not Rock Slide, Earthquake, I would have killed it anyway. But I go to Claydol, who gets Toxic, and I'm just going to boom on the Blissey. If he went to Skarmory, that would have been not as nice for me. I would have had to try to win the game with a combination of Charizard, Focus Punch, and Swampert on the Blissey. If he went to Starmie, that would have been fine, I think. But not as good, because Regice is still really good into Starmie, but in any case, I can go to Charizard here. I substitute against the Skarm. I actually get Whirlwinded, but I'm into Regice, and Regice is threatening a kill here. It gets a spike up, but at this point it's too little too late. T-Tar is the last. I assume it's a DD T-Tar. So I'm just going to go to Swampert. And then I can just Earthquake. It hits both Starmie and Tyranitar. And I'm going to Protect to get a little bit of HP back. Starmie could have recovered if it had it, but as you'll see, Protect gets me out of 2-hit KO range, so I'm fine with going for that. And then in comes the Tyranitar. I'm just going to Earthquake it to get damage. Its Earthquake doesn't even threaten to kill me on the next turn, so I'll just get a pretty easy KO here, except he crits Rock Slide. If he got the flinch there, maybe he could have made something happen, but I think between Regice and Charizard, I probably still would have won. My Charizard does have HP Grass, so I think the Tyranitar was low enough that I could have got there. Yeah, but that's Medicham did a lot of work there, and we're going to do another game with lead Medicham here. Against Zapdos, I tend to switch to Regice because I don't want to take a T-Wave, and I don't want to give up a lot of damage on a Thunderbolt when I don't even always kill with Rock Slide. In fact, I usually don't because I'm jolly. But sometimes it's worth it to go for the Rock Slide. Sometimes the Zapdos will go for Substitute. Sometimes the Substitute Zapdos will somehow be slower than Jolly Medicham. That's extremely rare, but I've seen it happen, and I'm always very giddy when it does, and I call it out. But Regice is still pretty good into Zapdos. I get a Ice Beam off on the Metagross. It's a pretty low bulk Metagross, I think, based on that. The Metagross gets a raise there. I go for Hydro Pump. I generally like to Hydro Pump Metagross especially when Zapdos is on the team. Because if Zapdos switches into the Earthquake, I'm in trouble. But if I can get some chip on it, that's pretty good. So actually, pretty risky. But I go to Tyranitar to let that go to sleep because I feel like Tyranitar is not going to be as useful into this matchup. Because Breloom can always just come in and force the Tyranitar out. But I have Charizard I can switch into for the Focus Punch. Puts me below half, which is not nice, but I'm threatening a KO with Fire Blast. Just going to go for it. Suicune's a little bit annoying, but Regice has a decent matchup, and that Hydro Pump tells me that this is not a very bulky Suicune, so I actually have a better matchup. I can go for Thunderbolt here. It's threatening a 2-hit KO on Metagross, but I'm Regice and I'm slow as hell, so I'm obviously not getting the KO there. I go to Charizard, a good double to Suicune. It covered me going to Swampert or Charizard. I'm going to have to go back to Regice and take a Pump. Pump might kill me after Sand here. It's actually going to go to Dugtrio, though, which is a pretty good. That's a nice trap on Regice. Regice does not die from full, so you have to get chip on it. But this is really nice for me because I can go Charizard. I go for Hidden Power Grass, trying to catch the Suicune. I probably could have went for Substitute and had a really, really threatening Fire Blast into the Raikou. But now I can go to Medicham, and I get a Brick Break off. I actually would have lived this Pump. Medicham at full health, even with no investment, lives Pump from full. It is fortunate that I dodged it, though, because I can stay in and Rock Slide here, not worried about the T-Bolt. And I actually see that I'm faster than the Zapdos. Here comes Dugtrio, who doesn't even get the KO on me, and I KO it back. So this is Medicham's bulk in action, which is really funny because you don't even invest in it, and it just lives all these random hits. It's kind of nice. And then at this point, this game looks pretty wide open for my Metagross. I'm Agility with a Lumberry, so even though he pairs me, I don't care. And then I can just fire off this Earthquake. Suicune comes in. I would just Earthquake it. It can pick me up with the Hydro Pump, but at this stage, Charizard is beating everything. So, yeah, I mean, all my opponent can really do is dodge Fire Blast, which is maybe an argument for Flamethrower on Charizard. You can certainly run Flamethrower on your Charizard if you want to copy this team. That's totally fine. But I'm actually going to go for Dragon Claw here because all I need is damage on the Breloom. I know that Ice Beam from Swampert will pick this up, and the only thing it can do to kill my Swampert is Focus Punch. So I'm not risking a Fire Blast miss costing me the game. So it didn't actually matter. I just 1v1 the Breloom anyway. And that's really nice. This also goes to show, and has nothing to do with Medicham at all, but that Tyranitar can still get value even when all it did was come in and get hit with a Spore. That Sand was huge for stopping Suicune from being able to do anything. So, yeah, I think that was really cool. These next games, I think I got 2 more for you. We're going to have a Medicham in the back, so this is the lead mixed Mets team. And actually, I'm up against a lead Medicham there, which is kind of funny. I go for Dragon Claw. It's my best damage into Medicham. And if it opts to trade and try to go for a Rock Slide, I know I'll live it. I go for Meteor Mash, and I get the raise against the bird. When I get a raise against the bird, I generally stay in an attack, but on this version of the team, I actually have mixed Metagross. I think I actually prefer a physical attacking Metagross, but I do get a nice amount of damage on the Skarmory. Unfortunately, I don't catch the Flygon switching in. If I Meteor Mash there, this game would have been blown wide open. But I can come in and threaten the Flygon with Dragon Claw. I actually go for Brick Break in case the Blissey tries to come in. Because it's Skarmory, I'm just going to go for Fire Blasts. I'm fine Fire Blasting into Blissey if I manage to get the burn. That limits what Blissey can do. And also, Metagross is good into Blissey, except this one happens to be Flamethrower. I would generally run Fire Blast over Flamethrower if I was going to do that with Blissey, but I guess it kind of works out because even though I get the raise, he gets the burn. But in this stage, Medicham is looking very scary because Brick Break is threatening a 2-hit KO on Skarm. It's threatening a 2-hit KO on Flygon if it's offensive Flygon. He actually stays in and goes for Drill Peck, which is like really ballsy. If I Brick Breaked again, I would have killed. But instead, I'm just going to go to Claydol, spin the Spike away, and then use this, presumably a free turn to get Tyranitar in, but actually the Skarmory goes for Drill Peck again and doesn't even get its Spike up. I Dragon Dance. Flygon is a pretty good answer into my Tyranitar. I don't have Ice Beam or anything to hit it, so I just have to switch. I go to Claydol, and then I go to Mence. Honestly predicting a Toxic, but this reveals itself to be a physical Flygon, so I'm cool with that. Dragon Claw is really good into Blissey because now it's a roll to die to Brick Break, so I'll just go for it. That's Chip on Zapdos. And we're setting ourselves up here for Medicham to kind of take advantage of some of these like half-health Pokemon. I get a nice double switch back to T-Tar, and because I'm a physical T-Tar, I'm threatening a KO on Blissey. I go for Rock Slide. This Medicham comes in and eats it. I'm going to go to my best Medicham switch in, which is Salamence, and take a Focus Punch. I will not be able to do that again. But I'm in a good spot here because I can click Dragon Claw again, and Blissey is certainly dead to Brick Break here. I'm going to click Dragon Claw again, though. No, I'm not. I'm going to click Brick Break. Dragon Claw again would have been so nice to hit the Zapdos. But I can always go to Claydol. He predicts it, or maybe he has HP Ice. I don't know. In any case, Blissey is relatively free. And by relatively free, I mean I'm going to double to get to Medicham. And now Medicham is going to pick up a kill. This Skarmory comes in, gets Brick Breaked for its troubles. I can stop it from getting its Spike up by just Brick Breaking again. And then I'm just going to Brick Break again. Except, no, I'm not. I'm going to Rock Slide because it's actually, I think, potentially a roll to kill the Skarm. Depends on a little bit on the set. But getting the Zapdos on switch in there was just chef's kiss. And if you can do a little bit of gaming with Medicham, you can put your opponent in a pack. So that Medicham, I don't know if it was Jolly. It might have been. And I might have just got a speed tie. But I think I kind of had to stay in because I can't switch my Salamence in. At the very least, I could get my Salamence in. And Dragon Claw is threatening everything on the team. There was no switch in. But thankfully, I get to keep my Medicham. Goes for Rock Slide, and I go to T-Tar. So if I had dodged it, I actually would have been fine. But I call this switch to Flygon. Skarm comes in. It's just going to straight up die to Dragon Claw at this range. Aerodactyl will come in now. I will go to Medicham because I don't think I need Medicham to win the game as badly. But I actually come in on a Rock Slide, which is really nice. My opponent misses the Rock Slide, and I go for Brick Break. If I went for Rock Slide, I would have just killed him, and then Medicham like easily wins the game. But unfortunately, my opponent makes good for it by getting the Rock Slide flinch on my Medicham. I mean, that's kind of like what was expected to happen, I guess, is that I would be able to get one Brick Break off. At this stage, I'm going to go for DD and click Hidden Power Bug. I get the critical hit, which is really nice, but my opponent also goes for Rock Slide. I presumably trying to catch the Ments. I know that my Tyranitar is bulky enough to live one Earthquake, so that's why I did this. But that crit really just like sealed the game for me, and then I can just Rock Slide. Well, I could Earthquake the Blissey, but a Rock Slide to hit the Aerodactyl coming in, and because I have more sacks and a full health Blissey, like I should just win this. So my opponent just forfeits, which I don't blame him for. I don't know, actually. I tried to look this guy up on Twitch, and I didn't see him. So I don't know if that means he's not streaming anymore, or if he's I don't know. Then again, maybe I shouldn't be assuming. Thick Shady, that could be... Never mind. Let's just go on into the next game. Salamence into a Miltank lead. Okay, Miltank is a very weird Pokemon. It's you don't see it very commonly, but it's got a really nice speed tier of 100, so it could be speed tying my Ments here. I believe on this team I'm naive Salamence, so I have max special attack but not max speed. I'm only hitting the 299. So Miltank could be a problem for me. I don't want to mess around with it, so I'm going to go to Metagross. On this team, I have Agility Metagross. So, yeah, he gets the Para and Meteor Mash, and he avoids the Meteor Mash, and gets a sub up. And I get full Parad. Like, this is the worst luck I've ever seen a Metagross have. I say well played there very sarcastically because, I mean, anybody would be favored in that position. And that's an HP Grass from the Magneton. This is just brutal. I Earthquake into a Salamence. Here comes Miltank. I'll go to my Salamence. I'm not willing to let my Ments get Parad, but I'm going to go to Tyranitar because I have the Lumberry. It goes for Body Slam and gets the Para. This is the most egregious Para luck I've ever seen. Alright, Ments comes in. I went for Rock Slide there. I remember that turn. Well, I don't get anything for it. So I go for Ice Beam. One, if the Ments stays in and tries to DD, then I just pop it one shot. Actually, you know what? I say I remember that I went for Rock Slide. I'm pretty sure this is my Mixtar, so it went for Ice Beam. In any case, it would have smashed the Ments. But I do remember predicting the Ments there. I go for Ice Beam. Maybe I get a Freeze. I don't. Nice thick fat Miltank will just eat that up. Now I go to Celebi. Maybe I should have been going to Celebi from the get-go, but I thought that Celebi was a little too passive. I go for Leech Seed there, and I get parried again. Have you seen anybody get parried this much? In any case, I'm just going to take my HP fire damage on this Metagross. I will switch out, though. I don't really need Claydol, I guess, when it's at this low HP. So I go for Explosion, and I catch the Miltank on switch, which is really nice. And I go to Ments because I'm pretty sure I'm faster based on previous Sandstorm stuff. And I am. So I get the Dragon Claw, and now the Menace is gone. But here comes the Ments, and I think actually I'm faster based on that Sandstorm. So I go and I get the critical hit. I think I kill other Ments unless they're running like HP investment. So I don't know if that crit mattered. This is a really nice double switch to Dugtrio here. Catches my Tyranitar. But I can go to Celebi now. Celebi's going to get a Giga Drain. It's good chip into Metagross, and I'm threatening to kill now with the HP Fire. He could have went to Dugtrio there and trapped my Celebi again, and saved his Metagross, which is probably what he should have done. But it is a hard play to make, so I don't blame him there. But now I'm going to go to Medicham. Medicham, nothing can switch into Brick Break. Snorlax can take one Brick Break, but it's going to get outsped and killed on the next one. Magneton is just outsped and killed. So obviously it can't switch in. And Dugtrio, if it chooses to stay in and go for HP Bug, I will live it. I think even if it's a crit, and I will certainly kill with Brick Break. So my opponent smartly decides to sack Magneton, not to smack Magneton. That's weird. I'm trapped here, and my opponent goes for Aerial Ace. So, interesting thing about this, if I look up Dugtrio, Aerial Ace into Medicham, it does 83. So this is stronger than the typical Dugtrio, right? That's not Jolly. That's got to be Adamant, right? Yeah, 83 for Aerial Ace falls in that range. If he went for Earthquake, there was a chance he just straight up KO'd me, but also literally would have, he literally would have just, most likely would have got me killed through the Sandstorm chip. And then it would have been a 1v1 Ments versus Lax. I think Ments is going to win that usually. I guess it depends on what the Lax set is. But because he goes for Aerial Ace, not realizing that Earthquake actually does more damage, I'm going to get a nice Brick Break off on the Snorlax. That does a lot. And then Ments can come in, and its Brick Break is going to finish off the Snorlax. So yeah, there you go. If you learned anything from this game, it's that do the calc to figure out what the strongest move is, because my opponent maybe could have won the game off of that. I guess it depends on what they would have done. What they would have done with Snorlax. They could have maybe blown up and got the tie. Although a tie favors me because I had less elo than my opponent did. In any case, that's kind of Medicham for you. It's really, really tough to switch into, because if it happens to click the right move for your switch in, you are taking massive damage or just straight up dying. I neglected to mention on my substitute set, but even if you're running substitute, and even if your opponent knows you have substitute, they're still a little wary to switch their flying / ghost type in, because they can't really know whether you have Rock Slide or Shadow Ball coverage. Both are reasonable. You could have either. Generally, I prefer to have Rock Slide, but I think even in the game that I showed, I actually had Shadow Ball going with this. So it kind of depends on your team, whether you need something to hit Skarmory, Zapdos / Moltres, or whether you need to be able to hit Gengar. It's kind of up to you what you're going to do. But yeah, I hope to see more Medicham on the ladder so we can finally get this thing to be OU ranked. It is better than Heracross. Okay, that's maybe a lie, but it's better than Breloom, and Breloom is OU ranked, so come on now. Yeah, we'll see you maybe for another one of these.